You are not broken. You are not too much. You are not unworthy because love has been inconsistent, distant, or absent. You are not flawed because you feel deeply, love fiercely, or need emotional connection to thrive. These are not weaknesses. They are the very signs of a soul that has not been broken by the world but still remembers how to feel. And that ability to feel, that's your power. That's your gift. That's what makes you capable of creating love that doesn't just survive, it transforms. Because real intimacy isn't built on surface charm or perfect timing. It's built on emotional courage, on the willingness to show up not polished but present, not fixed but feeling. And when you stop apologizing for your depth, when you stop shrinking your emotions to make others comfortable, something extraordinary happens. You become a mirror for authenticity. You give others permission to drop their masks, to stop performing, to finally be seen. And in that space, love doesn't just spark. It settles, it roots, it grows. Because men don't fall in love with someone who hides her feelings to seem strong. They fall in love with someone who owns her emotions without losing herself. Someone who can say, I care, without fear. Someone who can express hurt without blame, joy without hesitation, desire without shame. That kind of emotional fluency is rare, not because it's complicated, but because so many women have been taught to suppress it, to believe that crying is losing, that needing is weakness, that expressing love too soon is desperation. But here's the truth. Emotional availability is not neediness. It's strength. It takes courage to be open. It takes strength to be vulnerable. And it takes deep self-worth to say, I feel this without demanding the other person fix it. When you can hold your emotions with grace, when you can feel sadness without collapsing, joy without overcompensating, love without clinging, you become a sanctuary, not just for others, but for love itself. And that's where real connection begins. Not in grand gestures or perfect words, but in the quiet moments when a woman allows herself to be emotionally real. When she doesn't manipulate with tears, but shares them with dignity. When she doesn't weaponize silence, but uses it to reconnect with herself. When she doesn't chase for validation, but stays grounded in her worth. That balance, feeling deeply while remaining centered, is the mark of true feminine power. And it's magnetic. Men are drawn to it because it offers something they rarely find: safety. Not the kind of safety that comes from emotional distance, but the kind that comes from deep presence. The kind where they can be messy, uncertain, or quiet and still feel accepted. That kind of acceptance doesn't come from trying to fix or control. It comes from a woman who is at peace with her own inner world. A woman who doesn't fear emotion, hers or theirs. A woman who understands that love isn't about avoiding discomfort, but moving through it together. And when you embody that, you stop attracting fleeting interest and start magnetizing lasting bonds. Because you're no longer offering a performance, you're offering partnership. You're not asking to be saved, you're choosing to walk side by side. And that changes everything. You stop needing love to feel complete and start loving from a place of wholeness. That shift, internal, quiet, profound, is what alters the energy of every relationship you enter. You speak less from fear and more from truth. You act less from insecurity and more from clarity. You love not to fill a void, but to share abundance. And in that space, love doesn't feel like a risk, it feels like home. So don't numb your heart because it's been broken before. Don't silence your voice because you've been dismissed. Don't shut down your emotions because someone once called you too much. You are not too much. You are exactly enough. And the world doesn't need you to be smaller. It needs you to be fuller, to feel more, to love deeper, to lead with your heart, not in spite of it. Because when a woman embraces her emotional truth, not as a flaw, but as a force, she doesn't just change her relationships. She changes the energy of love itself. She becomes a living example that vulnerability is not weakness. It's the bravest act of all. And in that courage, she doesn't just find love. She becomes the kind of woman love can't live without. There is a quiet revolution happening inside you right now, whether you feel it or not. It's not loud. It doesn't announce itself with fireworks or fanfare. It begins in the stillness after a long day. In the breath you take before responding instead of reacting, in the moment you choose self-respect over desperation. This revolution isn't about becoming someone else. It's about refusing to betray yourself any longer. It's about finally honoring the voice within that's been whispering, "This isn't you. You're meant for more than this." And that voice, it's not asking you to chase harder, perform better, or love louder. It's asking you to come home to your truth, to your power, to the woman who doesn't need to prove her worth because she already knows it. Because here's what no one tells you: the most attractive quality a woman can possess isn't beauty, charm, or even intelligence. It's self-respect. Not the kind that pushes people away, but the kind that quietly holds its ground, the kind that says, I love deeply, but I will not lose myself. That kind of strength doesn't shout, it radiates. And when you carry it, you stop attracting those who take and start drawing in those who honor. Men don't fall in love with someone who tolerates disrespect, even if they've been conditioned to expect it. They fall in love with someone who sets boundaries with grace, who speaks her truth without attack, who walks away from what doesn't serve her without apology. That's not coldness, that's clarity. And clarity is magnetic, because in a world full of noise, confusion, and emotional chaos, a woman who knows her value and lives by it becomes a lighthouse. She doesn't manipulate with silence. She doesn't punish with distance. She simply honors herself, and in doing so teaches others how to treat her. That's not control. That's leadership. And it's one of the most deeply respected feminine qualities a man can encounter. He may not always understand it at first. He may even resist it if he's used to women who bend, break, or beg. But deep down, he admires it. Because somewhere beneath his fears and defenses, he knows a woman who respects herself is a woman who can truly love, not out of need, but out of choice, not to fill a void, but to share her fullness. And that kind of love, it doesn't drain him, it fuels him, it doesn't trap him, it frees him, because he's not carrying the weight of her happiness. He's walking beside someone who is already whole, and that changes everything. You see, self-respect isn't about pushing people away. It's about creating space for real connection. It's about saying, I am open, but I am not desperate. I am loving, but I am not available to anyone who shows up. And when you live that way, you stop attracting temporary interest and start magnetizing lasting commitment. Not because you're playing games, but because you've stopped living as if your worth depends on someone else's attention. That shift from seeking validation to embodying value alters the energy of every interaction. You speak with calm, you listen with presence, you love with boundaries, and in that balance you become not just lovable but irreplaceable, because a woman who respects herself doesn't need to be chased. She becomes worth choosing again and again. And that's not about manipulation. It's about integrity. It's about aligning your outer world with your inner truth. It's about refusing to settle for less than you deserve, not as punishment, but as honor. Honor for the woman you are. Honor for the love you're capable of giving. Honor for the life you're meant to live. And when you operate from that place, you don't just change your relationships, you change your destiny. You stop repeating old patterns. You stop attracting the same heartbreak. You stop making excuses for behavior that diminishes you because you've crossed a threshold. You've decided that peace is more important than drama, that dignity is more important than attention, that love should feel safe, not exhausting, and that decision, quiet, internal, unshakable, is the most powerful force in your life. It doesn't depend on anyone else's actions. It doesn't wait for permission. It simply is. And from that place, everything else rises. So let go of the belief that you have to earn respect. You don't. You have to live it. Every word you speak, every boundary you set, every time you choose yourself, not selfishly, but sacredly. That's where true feminine power lives, not in silence, not in sacrifice, but in the quiet, unwavering decision to honor yourself no matter what. And when you do, you don't just become someone men love, you become someone love cannot live without. There is a rhythm within you that has always known the truth, long before your mind learned to doubt it. It pulses in your breath and your intuition in the quiet moments when you feel most alive. It's the rhythm of your soul, and it doesn't speak in logic. It speaks in feelings, in knowing, in the silent pull toward what feels right, even when the world says otherwise. And when you stop overriding that inner voice with fear, analysis, or the need for external approval, something sacred begins to unfold. You start moving in alignment with your deepest self, not the version of you shaped by past heartbreaks, societal expectations, or the need to be liked, but the real you, the one who knows what she wants, what she deserves, and what she will no longer tolerate. That woman has been waiting, and now she's ready to lead. Because intuition isn't just a soft whisper, it's your inner compass. It's the wisdom of your body, your emotions, your lived experience, all converging into a single knowing that doesn't need proof to be true. And when you trust it, you stop making decisions from fear and start making them from clarity. You stop staying in relationships that drain you just because they look good on the surface. You stop ignoring red flags because you're afraid of being alone. You stop convincing yourself that good enough is enough. Because your intuition doesn't lie. It doesn't manipulate. It doesn't beg for attention. It simply points you toward what aligns with your truth. And when you follow it, you don't just avoid pain, you step into peace, real peace. The kind that doesn't depend on someone else's behavior, words, or presence, the kind that comes from knowing you are in integrity with yourself. And that peace, that's what makes you magnetic. Not because you're trying to attract anyone, but because you've stopped betraying who you are. Men don't fall in love with a woman who second-guesses herself, pleads for clarity, or ignores her gut to keep the peace. They fall in love with a woman who listens to her inner voice and trusts it enough to act. A woman who can say, "This doesn't feel right," and walk away without guilt. A woman who can say, "This feels like home," and move forward without fear. That kind of inner alignment is rare, not because intuition is rare, but because so many women have been taught to silence it. To believe that logic is smarter, that others know better, that needing reassurance means they're not strong. But true strength isn't ignoring your feelings, it's honoring them. It's having the courage to say, "I don't know why, but I know." And when you do, you stop living in reaction and start living in purpose. You make choices that reflect your worth, not your wounds. You set boundaries that protect your energy, not punish others. You love from a place of clarity, not confusion. And in that space, you become someone a man doesn't just desire, he respects. Because deep down, every man longs to be with a woman who knows herself, not perfectly, not rigidly, but deeply. A woman who doesn't need him to tell her who she is. A woman whose sense of self isn't shaken by conflict, distance, or uncertainty. That kind of woman doesn't create dependency. She creates partnership. She doesn't seek validation. She offers stability. And that stability isn't cold or distant. It's warm, grounded, unshakable. It's the kind of presence that makes a man feel safe enough to be vulnerable, to drop his armor, to finally be real. And when you lead with that kind of intuitive strength, you don't just transform your relationships, you transform your entire life. You stop attracting those who confuse you and start drawing in those who see you. You stop wasting energy on connections that go nowhere and start investing in ones that grow. You stop questioning your worth and start living it, because you're no longer looking outside for answers. You're turning inward and finding everything you've ever needed. So don't dismiss the quiet knowing in your chest. Don't talk yourself out of the truth just because it's uncomfortable. Don't override your intuition because someone else disagrees. That voice within you is not your enemy. It's your greatest ally. It's the part of you that remembers who you are when the world isn't watching. And when you learn to trust it, you stop searching for love in all the wrong places. You stop trying to force what isn't meant to be. You stop sacrificing your peace for the illusion of connection. And in that surrender to your inner wisdom, you become not just lovable, but truly, deeply, unshakably free. You were never meant to carry the weight of proving your worth. You were meant to move through the world like water, soft, fluid, unafraid to take up space, yet never forcing your way. There is power in gentleness, a quiet, unshakable strength in the woman who doesn't need to dominate to be seen, who doesn't raise her voice to be heard, who doesn't demand love to feel valued. She simply is. And in her being, she changes everything. Because gentleness is not weakness, it's not passivity, it's not submission. It's the courage to remain open in a world that often rewards hardness. It's the choice to respond with warmth when met with coldness, to offer presence instead of pressure, to lead with kindness without losing your center. And that kind of energy, it doesn't push love away, it draws it in. Men don't fall in love with someone who matches their intensity, who fights for control, who matches their ego with louder words. They fall in love with someone who disarms them, not with manipulation, but with peace, with a woman whose presence feels like relief, who doesn't add to the noise, but offers stillness, who doesn't escalate tension, but holds space for healing. That kind of woman doesn't need to chase connection. She becomes its source. Because real intimacy isn't born in arguments, competition, or power struggles. It's born in the quiet moments when a man feels, for the first time, that he can feng xia, his guard, that he can be uncertain, tired, or quiet and still be loved. And that safety, it doesn't come from words, it comes from energy, from the way you hold yourself, the way you listen, the way you allow silence to exist without rushing to fill it. When you embody true gentleness, you stop trying to fix, control, or manage the people around you. You simply offer your presence, calm, centered, unshaken. And in that space, love doesn't feel like a battle. It feels like belonging. You stop needing to win every conversation. You stop taking everything personally. You stop reacting from fear and start responding from strength. Not the kind of strength that pushes, but the kind that holds, the kind that says, I am here, I am steady, you can lean. And when a man encounters that, something deep within him shifts. He doesn't feel challenged, he feels seen, he doesn't feel threatened, he feels safe, and in that safety he can finally be real. Not the version he shows the world, not the mask of confidence or control, but the man beneath, the one who hurts, who doubts, who longs to be loved for who he truly is. And when you create that space, you don't just become someone he desires, you become someone he needs. Not in a desperate way, but in the way a tree needs roots, the way light needs darkness to be seen, the way a soul needs truth to come alive. That's the power of gentle strength. It doesn't shout, it doesn't demand, simply exists, and in its existence it transforms. But so many women have been taught to believe that gentleness is a flaw, that to be soft is to be vulnerable to harm, that to be kind is to be taken advantage of, and so they armor up, they become sharp where they were once warm. They speak louder than they feel, they hide their sensitivity behind sarcasm, distance, or control. But here's the truth, no one has ever built a lasting bond on hardness. No love has ever truly flourished in fear. The connections that endure, the ones that deepen, grow, and transform, are built on softness, on the courage to be gentle, even when the world is rough, on the willingness to love without conditions, while still holding your boundaries, on the strength to be tender without losing your power. And when you reclaim that, you stop attracting those who want to dominate you and start drawing in those who want to cherish you. Because a man who truly values a woman doesn't want to overpower her. He wants to be moved by her. He wants to be softened by her presence. He wants to return home to a love that doesn't exhaust him but renews him, and that kind of love only exists when a woman stops apologizing for her gentleness and starts honoring it as her greatest strength. So let go of the belief that you have to be harder to survive. You don't. You were born with everything you need. Your warmth is not a liability. Your kindness is not a weakness. Your ability to love deeply and gently is not something to fix. It's something to protect, nurture, and let shine, because the world doesn't need more hardness. It needs more heart. And you, soft, strong, centered, real, you are exactly the woman love has been waiting for. There is a warmth within you that no storm can extinguish, a quiet, radiant fire that flickers in your chest every time you choose kindness, every time you offer comfort, every time you show up for someone without expecting anything in return. That warmth is not accidental. It's not weakness disguised as sweetness. It's one of the most powerful forces in human connection, nurturing energy. And when you stop seeing it as something to downplay or apologize for, when you stop fearing that caring too much will make you vulnerable to being used, you unlock a depth of love that doesn't just attract men, it transforms them. Because men don't fall in love with someone who matches their logic or impresses them with achievements. They fall in love with someone who makes them feel seen, held, understood, someone who doesn't just share their life, but nurtures it. Not in a way that smothers or controls, but in a way that uplifts. A woman who remembers the little things, who notices when he's tired, who doesn't need to be asked to offer a moment of comfort. That kind of care isn't servitude. It's soul-level attention, it's love made visible, and it speaks directly to the deepest part of a man, the part that longs to be taken care of not just physically, but emotionally, not through demands or guilt, but through genuine, effortless warmth. But so many women have been taught to suppress this quality, to believe that nurturing means losing themselves, that caring deeply means being taken for granted, that offering emotional support means they're responsible for fixing everything, and so they pull back. They become distant. They armor their hearts with independence, afraid that if they show how much they care, they'll be drained, used, or abandoned. But here's the truth. Nurturing is not self-sacrifice. It's not giving until you're empty. True nurturing flows from fullness. It comes from a woman who is grounded in her own worth, who cares not to earn love, but because her heart naturally overflows. And when you nurture from that place, when you give from abundance, not lack, you don't deplete yourself, you amplify your power, because love given freely from a place of strength doesn't weaken you. It deepens your presence. It makes you unforgettable. Men remember the woman who made them feel safe, the one who didn't judge their silence but sat with it, the one who didn't mock their dreams but believed in them, the one who didn't demand attention but gave it freely. That kind of woman doesn't need to chase loyalty. She earns it simply by being who she is. And she doesn't attract temporary affection. She inspires lasting devotion. Because when a man feels nurtured in a way that feels authentic, not forced, not transactional, something shifts inside him. He stops running. He stops hiding. He stops protecting himself from love as if it's a threat. He begins to trust not just her, but the very idea of love. And that trust becomes the foundation for something real, something that lasts. But nurturing isn't just about how you treat others. It's also about how you treat yourself. A woman who nurtures her own heart, who speaks gently to herself, who rests when she's tired, who honors her needs without guilt, that woman radiates a different kind of energy. She doesn't beg for care because she already gives it to herself. And that self-nurturing, that's what makes her nurturing of others so powerful. It's not desperate. It's not needy. It's not a plea for love in disguise. It's a genuine offering from a soul that knows how to love without conditions. And when you live that way, you stop attracting takers and start drawing in givers, because energy flows where energy is given. You teach people how to love you by how you love yourself. And when you nurture your own spirit with rest, with boundaries, with compassion, you create a standard, not through words, but through presence. You show that love should feel warm, not heavy. That connection should feel safe, not exhausting. That care should be mutual, not one-sided. And in that quiet consistency, you become someone a man doesn't just want to be with, he wants to grow with, not because you fixed him, but because you created a space where he could heal, not because you changed him, but because you loved him in a way that made change feel possible. That's the true power of nurturing. It doesn't control, it doesn't manipulate, it doesn't demand. It simply creates the conditions for love to grow. Like sunlight on a seed, it doesn't force the plant to rise. It makes rising natural. And when you embody that energy, you stop chasing relationships and start becoming the kind of woman love naturally gravitates toward. So don't dim your warmth to seem stronger. Don't hide your care to appear more independent. Don't suppress your instinct to comfort out of fear of being taken for granted. Your ability to nurture is not a flaw. It's a superpower. And the world doesn't need you to be colder. It needs you to be more fully, unapologetically, radiantly you. Because the deepest love doesn't come from perfection. It comes from presence. From the woman who cares deeply, loves freely, and holds space with grace. And that woman, gentle, strong, rooted in her truth, is exactly who you were born to be. There is a quiet magic in the way you listen. Not just with your ears, but with your presence. When you stop waiting for your turn to speak. When you stop preparing your response before the other person has finished, when you truly receive someone in their entirety, words, silence, pain, joy, you offer one of the rarest gifts in human connection, being seen. And that act, simple, profound, deeply human, is one of the most powerful feminine qualities a woman can embody, because men don't just want to be heard, they want to be felt. They want to know that when they speak, someone is not just listening, but holding space for what's beneath the words, that their emotions matter, that their story has weight, that their presence is enough. And when you offer that kind of deep listening, you don't just create connection, you create safety. Not the kind of safety built on silence or avoidance, but the kind that says, you can be real here, you can be messy, you can be afraid, and I will still be with you. That kind of presence doesn't come from effort, it comes from stillness, from the courage to be quiet, from the willingness to let someone else be the center without needing to make it about you. And in a world that glorifies speed, noise, and self-promotion, that kind of listening is revolutionary. It's not passive, it's power in its purest form. Power that doesn't dominate, but honors. Power that doesn't interrupt, but receives. Power that doesn't seek attention, but gives it freely. And when you master this, you stop being just a partner, you become a sanctuary. a place where love doesn't have to perform, where a man doesn't have to wear a mask, where he can finally exhale and say, this is me, this is what I'm carrying, this is what I fear. And when he does, he isn't looking for solutions. He isn't asking you to fix it. He's asking for one thing, to be met with presence. And that's where your strength shines. Not in advice, but in attention. Not in fixing, but in feeling with him. That's the essence of deep listening. It's empathy in action. It's love made tangible. But so many women have been conditioned to believe that listening means agreeing, or that being supportive means taking on someone else's burden. So they either shut down, afraid of being emotionally overwhelmed, or they overgive, trying to solve, soothe, or save. But true listening requires neither. It requires only this: the ability to be fully there without agenda, without judgment, without the need to change the moment. It's the quiet strength of a woman who can sit with discomfort, who can hold space for pain, who can witness someone's truth and not flinch. And when you do that, you don't just deepen a relationship, you transform it. Because in that space, love stops being about surface-level chemistry and starts being about soul-level connection. You stop being someone he talks to and become someone he talks through, someone he trusts with his inner world. And that trust, it's not given lightly. It's earned in the silent moments when you choose presence over reaction, patience over impatience, stillness over noise. You earn it when you don't interrupt his silence with words just to fill the air, when you don't minimize his struggle with quick reassurance, when you don't turn his story into yours. You earn it by simply being there, grounded, open, unafraid of emotion. And when a man feels that kind of acceptance, something shifts inside him. He begins to trust not just you, but himself. He starts to believe that he can be vulnerable without losing respect, that he can share his fears without being seen as weak, that he can be human and still be loved. And that belief, that's where real intimacy begins. Not in grand declarations, but in the quiet certainty that he is safe with you, that he is known, that he is enough, and you, by simply listening deeply, become the catalyst for that transformation. But deep listening starts within. You cannot truly hear another if you are constantly at war with yourself. If you dismiss your own feelings, rush through your own pain, or silence your inner voice, you cannot offer genuine presence to anyone else, because the ability to listen deeply is born from self-awareness, from the woman who knows her own heart, who has made peace with her emotions, who doesn't fear silence because she's comfortable in her own skin. When you cultivate that inner stillness, your outer presence becomes magnetic. You don't need to speak much. You don't need to prove anything. Your attention becomes your gift. And in a world starved for real connection, that gift is priceless. So don't underestimate the power of listening. Don't mistake it for passivity. Don't confuse it with weakness. It is one of the strongest, most loving acts you can offer. And when you do it from a place of wholeness, not need, not fear, not the desire to control, you become someone a man doesn't just love. You become someone he returns to again and again, not because you entertained him, but because you held him, not because you changed him, but because you let him be. And in that space, love doesn't just survive, it breathes, it grows, it becomes something neither of you could have created alone. There's a quiet magnetism in a woman who knows how to receive, not with neediness, not with expectation, but with grace. It's one of the most overlooked yet most powerful feminine qualities a woman can embody. Because in a world that teaches you to give, perform, and earn love, the ability to simply receive becomes an act of rebellion, a declaration of worth, a silent affirmation that you are not only allowed to be cared for, you are meant to be. And when you open yourself to receive, you do more than accept love. You invite it in. You create space for it to grow. You allow the man in your life to experience the joy of giving, not out of obligation, but from a place of genuine desire. Because men don't just want to provide, they want to matter. They want to feel needed in a way that honors them, not burdens them. And when you let them care for you, when you accept a gesture, a kind word, a small act of love without shrinking, deflecting, or repaying immediately, you give them one of the deepest emotional rewards, the feeling of being truly useful, valued, and trusted. That's not weakness, that's wisdom, that's strength wrapped in softness. But so many women struggle with receiving. They've been conditioned to believe that needing anything makes them burdensome, that accepting help is a sign of failure, that love must be earned through endless giving. So they push away kindness, they downplay compliments, they refuse support, not because they don't want it, but because they've forgotten they deserve it. And in doing so, they block the natural flow of love, because love is not meant to be a one-way current. It's a cycle. Give and receive, lead and allow, strength and surrender. And when you resist one half of that cycle, the whole system breaks down. You end up exhausted, unappreciated, and disconnected, not because you gave too much, but because you never allowed yourself to be filled. But here's the truth. Your ability to receive is directly tied to your sense of worth. The more you believe you are enough, the easier it becomes to accept love without guilt. The more you trust that you are lovable as you are, the more naturally you can say thank you instead of I'll pay you back. And when you do, something shifts in the energy of your relationships. You stop being the only one carrying the weight. You stop performing to prove your value. You stop giving from emptiness just to feel worthy of being loved. Instead, you begin to move in rhythm with love's natural flow. You give when your heart is full. You receive when it's time to be nurtured. And in that balance, you become not just loving, but lovable in the deepest sense. Because a woman who receives with gratitude and grace doesn't drain a man. She inspires him. She makes him want to give more, not because he has to, but because he wants to. Not out of duty, but out of joy. And that joy, that's what keeps love alive. Not grand gestures, but the daily, quiet exchange of care, where both people feel seen, valued, and needed. But receiving isn't just about romantic love. It's about how you relate to life itself. Do you allow good things to come to you, or do you push them away, convinced you haven't done enough to deserve them? Do you let compliments land, or do you deflect them with a joke or a dismissal? Do you accept help when offered, or do you insist on doing it all alone? These small moments reveal a deeper truth. Your relationship with receiving shapes your entire experience of love. And when you begin to practice receiving, not as a transaction, but as a sacred act of trust, you heal something deep within. You begin to believe that you are worthy of care, not because of what you do, but because of who you are. And that belief changes everything. It softens your edges. It quiets your fears. It opens your heart. You stop chasing validation and start living from abundance. Because you're no longer trying to earn love, you're allowing it to move through you in both directions. And when you embody that energy, you stop attracting people who take and start drawing in those who give freely. Not because you demand it, but because you've created the space for it. You've shown through your presence that love is not a competition, it's a dance. And you are not only willing to lead, you are brave enough to follow. That balance between giving and receiving, strength and surrender, independence and intimacy, is where true feminine power lives. It's not about being passive. It's about being open, not about dependence, but about connection. And when you master this, you don't just become someone a man loves, you become someone he cherishes, someone he protects, someone he builds a life with, because you've shown him that love isn't about proving worth, it's about sharing it. And in that sharing, both of you become more than you were alone. So let go of the fear of needing. Let go of the belief that receiving makes you weak. Let go of the idea that you have to earn every bit of kindness that comes your way. You don't. You are already worthy. And when you start living that truth, when you open your hands, your heart, your life to receive love with dignity and grace, there is a quiet power in a woman who knows how to move through life with grace. Not perfection, not pretense, but a deep, unshakable alignment with her truth. Grace is not something you wear. It's something you are. It's the way you carry yourself when no one is watching. The way you respond when you're hurt, not with bitterness, but with dignity. The way you walk away from what no longer serves you without burning bridges, without screaming, without needing the last word. That kind of presence doesn't come from suppressing emotion. It comes from mastering it, from choosing your response instead of reacting from pain. And that choice, quiet, intentional, rooted in self-respect, is one of the most magnetic feminine qualities a woman can possess, because men don't fall in love with drama. They don't build lives with chaos. They commit to peace, to the woman who doesn't escalate conflict but lowers the temperature with her presence, to the one who can be firm without being harsh, clear without being cold, strong without being hard. That balance, strength wrapped in softness, is not common, it's rare, and it's unforgettable. When you move through life with grace, you stop proving yourself in every interaction. You stop needing to win every argument. You stop defending your worth with sharp words or emotional outbursts. Instead, you hold your ground with calm. You speak your truth without attack. You set boundaries without punishment. And in that stillness, you become unshakable. Not because you're emotionless, but because you've made peace with your emotions. You feel them, you honor them, but you don't let them hijack your power. And that mastery, emotional, spiritual, internal, radiates outward. It changes the energy of every room you enter. It transforms the way people treat you because you're no longer sending the signal that you're desperate to be seen or validated. You're sending the signal that you are already whole. And when a man encounters that kind of woman, something deep within him stirs. He doesn't feel challenged. He feels called to rise, called to meet you at that level of clarity and calm, called to show up not with ego, but with integrity. Because grace doesn't invite manipulation, it invites respect. It doesn't tolerate games, it quietly dissolves them. You don't need to remind someone of your worth when you carry it so completely in your presence. You don't need to punish when you simply remove yourself from what diminishes you. You don't need to scream when your silence speaks volumes. And that kind of power, it doesn't intimidate, it inspires. But so many women have been taught that grace means silence, that being graceful means swallowing pain, hiding truth, or staying in situations that break the spirit. But that is not grace. That is suppression. Real grace is not weakness. It is strength refined. It is the courage to walk away with dignity, to forgive without forgetting, to love without losing yourself, to speak your truth and still remain kind. That kind of woman doesn't create distance with anger. She creates space with presence. She doesn't shut down. She holds her center. And in that centeredness, she becomes a force of emotional maturity that few can match. Men are drawn to it because it offers something they rarely find. Stability, not the kind that comes from control, but the kind that comes from inner peace, the kind where a woman doesn't need drama to feel alive, where she doesn't need conflict to feel seen, where she can be deeply loving without being emotionally dependent. That balance, being fully open while remaining grounded, is the hallmark of true feminine power. And when you embody it, you stop attracting those who want to fix you or dominate you. You start drawing in those who want to walk beside you, not above you, not below you, but with you, as equals, as partners, as two whole people choosing each other every day. And that kind of relationship doesn't need constant validation. It doesn't thrive on intensity. It grows in the quiet moments of mutual respect, in the unspoken understanding, in the way you both choose peace over winning, because grace isn't about being perfect. It's about being real, with elegance. It's about owning your flaws without shame. It's about admitting when you're wrong without losing your dignity. It's about loving deeply, even after disappointment. And when you live that way, you don't just become someone a man loves, you become someone he admires, someone he wants to protect, someone he never wants to lose. Because you've shown him that love doesn't have to be loud to be deep. That connection doesn't have to be chaotic to be real. That the most powerful woman isn't the one who shouts the loudest, but the one who stands the firmest in her truth, with kindness in her heart and fire in her soul. So let go of the belief that you have to be harder to be respected. You don't. Let go of the idea that you need to fight to be seen. You don't. Your grace is not your weakness. It is your strength. It is your signature. It is the quiet mark of a woman who has done the inner work, who knows her worth, and who refuses to betray herself for. And there is a quiet fire in the woman who knows how to hold space, not just for love, but for growth, not just for joy, but for transformation. She doesn't rush the process. She doesn't panic when things feel uncertain. She doesn't demand immediate answers or force outcomes. Instead, she trusts, she breathes, she waits, not with passivity, but with purpose. Because she understands that real love, like all living things, needs time to root, to stretch, to become what it's meant to be. And that patience, deep, grounded, unwavering, is one of the most powerful feminine qualities a man will ever encounter. Not because it makes her easy to take for granted, but because it reveals a strength so rare, so steady that it becomes the foundation of lasting connection. Men don't fall in love with someone who pressures them to commit before they're ready. They fall in love with someone who gives them room to grow, without fear, without manipulation, without silent ultimatums. They fall in love with a woman who can love deeply, yet allow space, who can care fiercely, yet refrain from clinging, who can desire closeness, yet honor timing. That balance between love and freedom is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's the mark of a woman who doesn't see love as possession, but as partnership. And when you embody that energy, you stop creating pressure and start creating safety. The kind of safety where a man doesn't feel trapped by affection, but invited by it. Where he doesn't shut down at the first sign of emotion, but opens up because he knows you won't punish his pace with guilt or distance. That kind of patience isn't passive, it's active trust. It's the courage to love without demanding return, to care without keeping score, to stay present even when the future is unclear. And in that stillness, something profound happens. Love isn't forced, it unfolds. Not in fireworks, but in quiet moments of growing closeness. Not in grand declarations, but in the steady rhythm of mutual respect and timing. But so many women have been taught that patience means waiting quietly while love slips away, that giving space means losing control, that allowing time means being passive. But true patience is not inaction. It's the decision to trust the process while staying aligned with your worth. It's loving without begging. It's choosing not to chase, not because you don't care, but because you respect yourself too much to beg for attention. It's walking away from what isn't right, not in anger, but in clarity. And when you do that, with grace, with dignity, with inner strength, you send a powerful message: I love deeply, but I will not abandon myself for love. That kind of woman doesn't create dependency, she creates longing. Because when someone realizes they've been given space, time, and freedom, and still you remain grounded, whole, and unshaken, they don't take you for granted. They begin to value you, not because you were hard to get, but because you were impossible to replace. And that shift from fear-based urgency to soul-based timing changes everything. You stop attracting those who want convenience and start drawing in those who want commitment. You stop investing in connections that go nowhere and start nurturing ones that grow. Because real love doesn't thrive on pressure. It thrives on space, on the freedom to choose again and again to be with you. And when a man makes that choice, not because he's cornered, but because he's certain, love becomes unshakable. But patience begins within. Cannot give space to others if you are constantly at war with your own timing, if you punish yourself for not being further along, if you panic when love doesn't move fast enough, if you equate waiting with failure. You cannot offer true patience to a relationship because your urgency will leak out in subtle ways: the texts that feel like checks, the questions that feel like demands, the silence that feels like punishment. True patience is born from self-trust, from the woman who knows her worth isn't determined by how quickly someone commits, from the one who can wait, not because she has to, but because she chooses to honor the natural rhythm of connection. When you cultivate that inner stillness, your outer presence becomes magnetic. You don't need to prove love is real. You let it reveal itself. You don't force intimacy. You allow it. And in that allowance, you become someone a man doesn't just want to be with. You become someone he chooses day after day because he knows you love him not to fill your emptiness, but to share your fullness. So let go of the fear that timing is your enemy. Let go of the belief that love must move fast to be real. Let go of the idea that waiting means you're not enough, you are not behind, you are not late. You are exactly where you need to be. And when you trust your timing, when you honor your pace, when you love with patience instead of panic, you don't just become someone a man loves, you become someone love cannot release, because you've shown him that real connection doesn't rush, it roots, it doesn't demand, it deepens. And in that depth, both of you become who you were meant to be, together. There is a quiet revolution in the way you choose to love, not out of lack, not from fear, but from a deep, unshakable well of self-worth. It's not loud, it doesn't demand attention, but it changes everything. Because when you love from wholeness instead of hunger, you stop trying to fill your emptiness with someone else's presence. You stop measuring your value by their attention. You stop twisting yourself into shapes just to be chosen. And in that shift from need to choice, from fear to freedom, you become the kind of woman love cannot ignore, not because you're chasing it, but because you've stopped needing it to survive. That kind of love, grounded, intentional, self-aware, is one of the most powerful feminine qualities a man will ever encounter, because it doesn't pressure, it doesn't cling, it doesn't manipulate with silence or guilt. It simply is warm, clear, unafraid. And when a man feels that kind of love, he doesn't feel trapped. He feels trusted to show up as he is, trusted to grow at his own pace, trusted to love not because he has to, but because he wants to. And that trust, that's where real intimacy begins, not in desperation, but in dignity, not in dependency, but in mutual choice. But so many women have been taught that love means sacrifice, that to be loved, you must give everything. your time, your energy, your voice, your boundaries, until there's nothing left of you. And when you live that way, love becomes a transaction. A constant exchange of pieces of yourself for fleeting moments of attention. You give more, you speak less, you suppress your needs, you smile through pain. And slowly the woman you once were fades into someone unrecognizable, defined not by her essence, but by what she can do for others. But here's the truth: love should not erase you. It should reveal you. It should help you become more of who you are, not less. And when you love from a place of wholeness, you stop giving from emptiness and start giving from overflow. You care deeply, but you don't lose yourself. You support fiercely, but you don't abandon your boundaries. You stay connected, but you never stop belonging to yourself. That balance, love without self-betrayal, is not weakness. It's the highest form of strength. And it radiates. It changes the energy of every relationship you enter, because you're no longer asking, "Do you want me?" You're living from the truth: "I am here. If you choose me, I welcome you. If you walk away, I remain whole." And that kind of presence, that's what makes a man not just fall in love, but stay in love. Because he knows you're not with him out of fear of being alone. He knows you're not holding on because you have nowhere else to go. He knows you're choosing him, not because you need him to complete you, but because he adds to a life that's already full. And that freedom, that's intoxicating. It doesn't push him away. It draws him in, because deep down, every man wants to be chosen. Not out of necessity, but out of desire. Not because a woman has no other options, but because he is her choice, even when she has many. And when you love like that, freely, fully, fearlessly, you stop attracting those who take and start drawing in those who cherish. You stop wasting energy on connections that drain you and start investing in ones that grow you, because you've set a new standard. Not through words, but through your energy. You've shown that love should feel like expansion, not contraction. Like peace, not anxiety. Like mutual growth, not one-sided sacrifice. And when you live that way, you don't just transform your relationships, you transform your entire life. You stop waiting for love to fix you. You start loving from a place of healing. You stop seeking validation. You start offering value from a soul that knows its worth. And that shift isn't small, it's seismic. It rewrites the story of who you are and what you deserve. So let go of the belief that loving deeply means losing yourself. You don't have to disappear to be loved. You don't have to silence your needs to be wanted. You don't have to earn affection by erasing your boundaries. True love doesn't ask for your surrender. It asks for your presence, fully, unapologetically, completely. And when you show up that way, grounded in your worth, clear in your truth, free in your heart, you don't just become someone a man loves. You become someone he builds a life with. Not because he can't live without you, but because he chooses to live with you every single day. And that choice, made freely from a place of strength, is the most powerful love of all.